gentlemen, welcome to the Hills of West Virginia. I'm Mr. Brown with
Steven Askin, Morbius, as some call me. So we got.
And some call you?
Yeah, some call me.
Hey, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact of the basketball game last night.
Oh yes, congratulations to Musselman basketball.
First home game. You were there.
I was there.
I was not. I had
our defense was very strong. Again, early in the season, it's going to take a little bit to get in the groove.
Yeah. And we're waiting for the Lady Applemen. It's going to be a little bit of time before they get a home game, but they had a big win the other night too. So we wanted to pitch that out to both of those before we get started on the show.
So like I said, it's Musselman so far has looked good, but you know what hasn't looked good?
All right, let's talk.
The college football playoff.
Okay, so this might be debate. I mean, if you go with one, I'm going to have to go with the other, so we could have a little bit of controversy here.
Well, we're not going to pick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we're not picking it. That's
not picking
they don't
the
play
bowl
for
games.
A while.
Got it.
But you know what? We are going to talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
There's no way. If we consider ourselves a legitimate sports podcast, we can't.
Which we are.
We are.
Now,
hundreds of thousands.
The one that I do with Jason Kamilowski, that's fake.
That's fake. But this is completely 100%
this one is absolutely real.
You can feel this podcast. You can see it. You can believe it. You can hear it. So, obviously, again, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know what happened. But for those of you that don't, over the weekend was conference championship week for college football. And we had one team, Florida State, who won their conference, went undefeated, right there in a Power 5 conference. And they did not make it into the college football playoff. The week before, where they were still ranked number 4 in.
Okay. All right, so let's break this down, okay, Stephen. Let's go through 1 through 4, and then we can talk about the other one. So number 1 is the Michigan Wolverines.
Yes.
Are you okay with that pick?
I could see Washington be there, but I'm fine with Michigan.
I could see Washington being there by beating the Ducks twice, but I mean, if you had AP has the Ohio State ranked number 1 stats. AP had
to do it. You had
Ohio State
ranked,
so you beat that one. You beat Iowa. You showed the defense. They're number 1. Washington's number 2, so we're cool with that. Okay. So number 3 comes in the University of Texas.
Yeah.
Texas wins the Big 12. They beat Oklahoma State. You think they were playing Oklahoma again, but it was Oklahoma State.
Yeah, it was Oklahoma State.
But we got that one right. Texas' one-loss stats was to...
it was to Oklahoma.
It was to Oklahoma, that's right. It was the Red...
But they beat Alabama.
They beat Alabama.
Early in the season, they beat Alabama. So if the committee is saying that games matter, then Texas has to be ahead of Alabama.
They have to be ahead of Alabama.
So are you okay with that pick at 3?
I'm okay with Texas being in, but not at 3.
Okay. So then we go to Alabama. Alabama had its one loss against Texas early, which, stats, you and I are a little bit older. We know even prior to this, it's better to lose early than it is to lose late. Unfortunately.
I just want to go on record and say I miss the old BCS days where if you lose a game, your season's over.
Your season's over. I remember Kansas State. I don't even know what year this is. This is probably about 10, 12 years ago. Even farther probably, maybe. But Kansas State was about ready to go, and they lost the Big 12 championship. And it was over.
Was that Colin Klein when he was the quarterback?
Yes. I don't even know how many years ago that was, but you're right. You lose, you're done. But for Alabama, they came in, they beat Georgia in a neutral site. They beat them by 3. They're the SEC champion. So let's talk. Where's your debate? Let's hear what you got to say, debate. And I'll say something because we've kind of had this talk.
So first off, my philosophy on the college football playoff falls in line with what the committees has been for the longest time. Games matter. The regular season matters. Yes, okay, you may not be the best team, but if you keep winning, you deserve to get in. It's always been it's not who's the best, it's who deserves it the most. So my ranking, personally, would be Washington at 1. I think the Pac-12 is the best conference in the nation this year. And they beat an Oregon team twice that many thought would make the playoff.
Oregon at that time period was a team that nobody else wanted to face.
Yeah.
You could definitely see that.
A Heisman candidate in Bo Nix, one of the most explosive offenses. And
So you didn't have them at 1.
So I would have them at 1.
Michigan
at 2. They won the Big Ten undefeated. That's really a Power 2 conference because after this, there's only 2 power conferences now.
Okay.
And I would put Michigan at 2. I don't think the Big Ten was as strong as a Pac-12 outside of Penn State and Ohio State, Michigan, and then you can maybe sprinkle in Iowa because of their defense.
It's 3-tier. It's a 3-tier league.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
So Michigan.
who's your
2.
third?
My third would have been the Florida State Seminoles.
Okay.
Why? And I understand they lost their quarterback, but they still won. That defense still held Louisville to 6 points, which was not a bad Louisville offense.
Something similar that the Wolverines had done all year too. Is that
it was
won with defense.
They won, and again, they lost their quarterback. Okay, so in my opinion, if he was truly that detrimental to their team, he should be the Heisman right now. If he was so detrimental that when they lost him, they're now out of the football playoff. It's ridiculous, but they should have been 3. Even though, again, even if they go out there and get blown out, and who says they do get blown out? Maybe they keep it. Last year, TCU, everyone likes to point to the national championship game and say, well, they got blown out. They
the
still
TCU,
won.
and then you had the Cincinnati.
Yeah. Cincinnati got blown out, but TCU won a game last year in the playoff.
So, okay.
And then number 4, now here's where my biggest debate on me personally, this is where my biggest inner conflict is. To me, number 4 is either Texas or Georgia.
You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one.
And I would go with Texas. Because they beat Alabama. Georgia lost to Alabama. So in turn, that would then mean Texas at 4, Bama at 5, and then Georgia at 6. Because games matter. And the SEC this year, it did not have a winning record in out-of-conference games. They were not as strong as they were. The bias by the committee completely showed, and they completely changed their entire philosophy. They no longer went with the most deserving team. It's now the best teams. Which, of course, even then, we can make a case that I don't even think Alabama was the best team to get in. Okay? Because, again, they had it both ways with Alabama, right? Because they're not the best team. They're not one of the 4 best teams. They struggled against Florida Southern, 17-3, who went 6-6, and they improved so much over the season that it took a last-second miracle against Auburn.
You're still about Thunder.
6-6. To me, it's absolutely ridiculous that Alabama got in. I'd rather see Georgia in there because I think Georgia. Now, granted, but again, Alabama lost to them. Games matter, so you go to the most deserving. So again. They went with, and there's, all these conspiracies. Well, it's because TCU lost last year, but the thing was, they won a playoff game, so it can't be because of that. Look, this is absolutely just a slap in the face to everybody else in college football that's not in a Power 2 conference, because it's not Power 5 anymore. Pac-12's gone, okay? And ACC, Big 12, maybe one of those teams, the winner of that conference gets in, but, SEC, Big 10, they dominate. And, the thing of it is, they're going to move to a 12-team playoff next year. But if you think that's going to get more, that's to get more teams out of other conferences, you're wrong. Because you're going to see 6 SEC teams. Let's take a look right now in the top 12, how many SEC teams are in there. So you got Alabama, you got Georgia, you got Missouri, and you got Ole Miss. That's 4 right there. LSU would be just out. And you know what? They probably would get in over Oklahoma because, again, it's the SEC bias. And if you had the BCS, right, before we went, chances are you'll probably get a better ranking. Florida State probably is maybe number 4. But I can tell you, Alabama ain't in the top 4. I can guarantee you they're not in the top 4. So, like I said, and also, again, it's just the thought process that Alabama now goes from 8 to 4, which is absolutely just insane to me.
I have no talking points.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So anyways, you brought up a really good point the other day in class.
All right.
I got on there.
Well, okay, so let's talk. And great job. I can tell that you're passionate about this, and that's awesome. You know, my son Colin and I sat down and watched this, and he's a data analytics major, and he just started bringing out all kinds of stats everywhere with this. I honestly thought while we were watching this in the countdown, it'd go Michigan, Washington, and then Florida State, and then they would have to say. I truly saw that. I was very upset at first when I saw it, and I thought Texas coming out. I was like, what the heck? How's this going on? But as the dust settled, and like you said, if Auburn rushes one more player,
oh my God,
and pressures them, we weren't going to have this call. But you know, at the end of the day, when the dust settled, I look back. I felt bad for Florida State. I felt bad for my friend Chris Puffenberger. Chris, if you're watching this, I knew you're a Florida State fan all the way back in the 1980s. Eric Crispin, I know you're happy. These are two guys that I played football with all the way back to the little leagues with the Chargers. Guys, so I know that not everybody can win, but when it's all said and done, it's the fans that are watching this. It's the games that we're going to be tuning into. It's the market that you have that we're talking about in economics. And you put a Michigan, Alabama, Texas, Washington. That's a good weekend on January 1st.
Yeah, but how far do you go to let marketing and ratings drive who gets to play for a national championship?
I totally understand that.
You're undefeated. You beat LSU, Clemson, Miami, Florida, Louisville, and when you're
I agree. I'm trying to make an argument so we can get this single, but you know what drives everything now, and even
right,
the NCAA.
But that's why Florida State's not in.
Yeah,
that's the only reason they're not in is because they're not going to bring a big.
So
draw.
you agree with me?
I do.
You agree with me?
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
look, this is,
and you're right. Even if we get to next year, but isn't that the beauty, guys, about college football? Because if everything was just said and done, we wouldn't have this podcast and be able to talk about it.
Well,
it's the fact.
What the NCAA does across the board makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Especially if you go to basketball and you look at all the transfers who are getting waivers and then the ones who aren't getting waivers. None of it makes sense.
It does not make sense.
Pat McAfee had a good rant the other week on College Game Day about the NCAA when they were in Harrisonburg at James Madison.
Yes.
And of course now they're going to let JMU play in a bowl game because it's beneficial to the NCAA.
It's beneficial to the NCAA.
But they're not going to let them get a conference championship because that doesn't.
And nobody else can win 6 games.
Yeah, because that doesn't benefit the NCAA. But letting them be a winning team playing in a bowl game gives them better marketing.
And I think Jacksonville State too.
Yeah. So it benefits the NCAA, but.
And I mean, and that's what I'm trying to say is everything is now about revenue.
Yeah, right.
You know, we've seen that. I'm still watching them.
That's the thing.
And here's the deal. Here is what the committee would love to see happen. They would love to see Georgia destroy Florida State, and they would love to see Alabama win the whole daggone thing. And they say, "Oh, we told you so."
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, you know, you got two really, really good coaches there. Jim Harbaugh, been there, done that. They're going to be ready. You give Nick Saban a month to prepare for you, that's going to be a whale of a ball game. And then we turn to the other one. We're not picking anything.
We're not picking.
Let's do this. If you were going to sit down on January 1st, they were at the same time, you're going to watch one of those two games. Which one are you watching?
I'm definitely watching Michigan, Alabama. I mean, look, you are not wrong at all. It is,
but you're not either. I got.
Yeah, I mean, look,
and stats, you bring in some great points too.
On the merit, you know, of this type of a thing, right? You know, when you're looking at this, right, sports. You know, I'm sure the NFL, okay, if it was rigged, would love to do Eagles Chiefs again, and maybe that happens. But it's probably not going to happen because the Chiefs might not get there. I mean, they don't look good. And the Eagles, right, they're shaky, right? I mean, both teams are shaky. But I'm sure if the NFL got their way, they would love to push that game. And if they could have a committee come out and get power rankings essentially every week, they would do that.
And the thing is, you know, I teach an economics class with you. If I couldn't bring economics in, you know, what are we talking about?
Well, exactly. You know, so I mean, like,
it's about making money.
It is about
And that NFL's about making
What was
money.
the
Of course
NBA
it would.
Finals? It was the Suns a couple years ago. It was the Suns
What are
and
we
the
talking about? We're talking
Bucks.
about basketball now?
Well, no, but you know, ESPN, you
Baseball.
could tell they didn't want to.
Baseball.
They didn't want to cover that game, or they didn't want to cover that series at all because it was in Milwaukee and Phoenix, which are not major markets.
They're mid-major markets.
But when it was Golden State and Boston, I mean, all
How
they
about
posted
Lakers
about.
Boston. I would love to see Lakers Boston, but
Oh,
that's for
Lakers,
another
Boston.
time.
I mean, that's
Roger.
big.
Yeah.
But I mean, Golden State and Boston, which was the year after, I mean, the coverage, all you could hear about was that finals on
I
ESPN.
mean, why are we on the air? Because
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah,
have hit
hundreds of
subscribe.
thousands.
Have hit subscribe
And
on
they-
that button,
and they religiously
they're still
watch
trying,
this podcast.
and they're still trying to find it. Where's the subscribe button? But that's why we're on the air.
So I mean, the
It's
thing of it
revenue.
is again, it's all revenue, right?
Sorry.
ESPN, you know, and again, a lot of this stuff, the SEC being the strongest conference, a lot of that is propagated by the media.
Now,
you know,
I know that
And-
also my other students we've seen that AI's out there. Sports Illustrated got caught with all this AI stuff. Is it true or untrue that they canceled the conference or the media conference between Georgia and Florida State? I heard that they were supposed to meet with both of the coaches.
wow.
And
Wow.
they postponed it or canceled it, but I
think that's probably
I don't-
true. Look.
I don't know if it's the truth or not. I don't know if they're just giving it a hiatus just to let all the stuff calm down. It's horrible for those athletes at Florida State that have done what they're supposed to do, and to not be rewarded it. But it gives so much. That's why sports is so much different. There's so much that we can talk about.
Well, I mean,
today,
yeah, that's the
and
good
we
part.
and we can discuss.
There was a little bit of just absolute disdain when I saw the rankings, but there was also that little bit of excitement because I knew we could talk about it. So that's
I
the
was
thing.
upset at first. I was like, "What's going on here? This
Yeah.
doesn't make sense." But
At the end of
Stats,
the
have you
day,
found out anything on that?
The rumor is that Florida State's boycotting the bowl game. That's the rumor.
I don't.
They did cancel the press conference.
They did can't. So that is true.
Oh, wow.
That is
The
true.
Orange Bowl canceled the
See,
press conference.
we make sure we check our sources before we put stuff out
Now,
there.
to me, I don't agree with boycotting. If you truly believe
Play the game.
you should have been in,
Beat-
play the
beat-
game and beat Georgia. And
Play the game and keep
committed.
Jordan and silence everybody.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I would love to see them go in.
And then Alabama lose by double digits, which isn't going to happen, but lose by double digits to Michigan.
And then
you know?
now because here we go.
Then you got Maryland.
Film don't lie. You hear
Yeah.
what you said?
Hold
Film
on.
don't lie. So we're going to come back here in a month, and all the dust is going to settle, and then we can determine did they make the right decision or did they not. And going by that, tune in. Make sure that you're tuning in to
Okay.
find out the results on this.
I mean,
what
like-
I got going on? What else?
Yeah, like I said,
And
I'll
that's
watch
good.
it.
I'm glad you did a good job.
So here we go, right? Still keeping it with college football. We got, one thing that is a little bit more cheerful to talk about. We got Saturday Heisman.
Sorry,
Um,
Heisman.
I mean, obviously everyone knows what the Heisman is. We don't got to go that much into it.
Fun fact: I used to vote for the Heisman Trophy.
Did you really?
Oh,
A
wow.
few years ago, yeah.
Wow.
The coolest thing about voting for the Heisman Trophy is you get to pick a charity that you get to work with at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with a program that actually allowed students to be donated notebooks, and it was Inwood Primary.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Schools on the list. So that's the cool thing. The Heisman Trust gives out those opportunities for.
Are you
Heisman
allowed to
voters.
tell us who you voted for?
But I voted for it back then. I have to look back and see
Okay.
what years it was. But
All right.
it was back when I was covering WVU. So 2016 was the last year that I voted for it.
All right.
I got about 3 or 4 years in. Someone literally has to resign or die in your state for you to get on the list.
Uh-huh.
And I was working with Mickey Fafari, who was in charge at the time. And I think someone passed away. And
Yeah.
it was like, here, you can have this spot.
That is
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Great.
Well, so this year's Heisman, right? Top 4, of course. You got Bo Nix, professional football college player. You have Michael Penix Jr. all
Great
right?
year.
Great year. Okay.
Beat him twice.
Yeah, beat Bo twice. I mean, again, we know the games don't matter anymore, but, hey, I mean, that, And then, of course, never ever going to call him this nickname, but Maserati Marv. Someone needs to let Gus Johnson go. Okay. Marvin Harrison. And then the fourth man is, of course, my guy, the guy who I want to win, Jaden Daniels.
You're an LSU fan.
I'm a big LSU fan. 2019, one of the greatest football teams I've ever seen. The sheer talent that was on
Hey,
that team.
I gotta teach a class at 8:30.
Yeah, I know, we can't, but yeah, that so that's the top four, and I'm perfectly fine with that being the finalists. I think all four, you could make a true case that hey, they are the Heisman. I think for Marvin Harrison, he's not playing in the playoff. I think that could hurt him a little bit.
But you look at his stats. There's been one wide receiver that's won the Heisman.
Yeah,
Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith had 98 catches.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
Let's see, 98 catches, 1,500 yards that year, and Marvin Harrison right now is sitting at 1,200 yards and 67 catches.
I don't think he's going to
It's
win.
tough to compare his season.
When
with
Desmond
Devontae
won
Smith.
it, did they have him in as like a?
He was a running back.
Yeah.
That's what they had him in.
Let's-
Speaking of
let's
running
see.
backs, what about Blake Corum? I mean,
You could make
do
a
you
case.
throw him in?
You could make
Did
a
he not
case.
set a record for Michigan running backs? With, I thought touchdowns or something. And he's got a game.
And he's been there for, he's been there for a couple of years, and he's been excellent.
I'm
every
going.
season.
Blake, I'm doing a write in. Blake Corum.
Writing in Blake Cornwell.
I'm writing him
I
in.
mean, you already
Are
know
we
who I
picking him?
think. Yeah, we'll pick.
I'm writing in Blake Corum.
Again, Michael Penix, he's playing in a game, and he beat Bo Nix twice, so I don't really think Bo Nix, but I think Jaden Daniels, who, has had an absolutely stellar career, at LSU.
So you think he's going to win?
I think he's going to win.
Stats.
I'll retract my statement on Devontae Smith. He was the first non-quarterback or running back to win the Heisman since Charles Woodson in '97.
Woodson was on that Michigan team. They won the Rose Bowl that year.
Smith was the fourth wide receiver to win it. So if Harrison wins it, he'd be the fifth wide receiver to win the Heisman. But his stats don't match up to anywhere close to. So I'm not even sure why he's in the conversation. I honestly would have put Milroe from Alabama in over.
Yeah, you could make
In
a
that
case.
Heisman.
Or again, Mr. Brown's favorite, Blake Corum, who could have been in there. So I'm thinking
We're still
Jaden
trying to
Daniels
figure out what
will.
record he said. All right, so look, I don't know if I'll be watching the Heisman on Saturday. I don't know.
I won't watch it.
I don't know what's going on, but in New York City is this. But if Bo Nix's name is not called, I would be surprised. But I was surprised when Florida State's name wasn't called either. So what do I know? That's who I'm going with my Heisman.
So
Oregon quarterback.
There we go. So now we only got one college football game to pick. We're not really going to talk about it that much because we don't want our viewers to fall asleep.
What? This is no. Listen, hold on. My buddies and I always argue what is the biggest rivalry in sports, and we can even look at like college football. Is it the backyard brawl?
Is it the game?
Is it? Hold on a second. Is it the Ohio State and Michigan? Is it the Iron Bowl? Alabama, Auburn? Is it Washington and Washington State, Oregon State? But many say that nothing touches. This is the actual game. Army Navy. When you have
14-10, baby.
Listen, when you have the entire stadium stand the entire game. Wow.
Well, just put it in perspective. This game gets a whole week to itself.
And it's moved, right, Stats? It is in Foxborough, and I hear that it is sold out, and it hadn't been in Foxborough for like 50 years or something. I don't know. But they're having it there, and tickets are like, it is harder to get a ticket to Army Navy this week than it is to Taylor Swift.
They're going to move
Probably.
it around for the next 4 years.
For the next 4 years.
Boston, Washington, Baltimore, and New York, and then Philly.
And it is usually played in Philadelphia at a neutral
it's
site
gonna go back
between
to Philly.
Annapolis and West Point.
Back to Philly in 2027.
So, who you got?
Man, this is a shot in the dark for me.
Shot.
We're gonna go with Army, I guess.
Okay, I had
Both 5 and 6.
my grandfather was a World War I veteran. My uncle was a World War II. I had all my uncles were military, but I had more of them in the Army than I did in the Navy. So I am also going go Army in this one.
All right, so there you go. There you have it. We've agreed a lot over the last.
Before we move on from NCAA, so Blake Corum, the record was 24th touchdown of the season and 57th of the career. It's a program record.
Okay.
Surpassing Anthony Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I knew it was some record. I couldn't remember which one.
So here we go. All right, so we've got
Here we go.
all the rants out of college football. Here we go.
You needed to clear that off your chest.
Yeah, I had to get
it was
it off
a good
I
thing.
had been waiting for this moment.
I had to. I'm like,
Since I
he
saw
wanted
it.
to talk about this in class for like
Yeah.
50 minutes. Like, time out. We got to teach.
I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
So, here we go.
Here we go.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Here we
New
go.
England Patriots.
Tonight,
Tonight, in Pittsburgh.
we do not lose at home.
Yeah. But
Uh,
there's no more small hands
Kenny Pickett in there.
in here.
Mitch is in there. We're missing. I don't even know who they drafted for our middle linebackers this week. Watt was injured and hurt last week. We're going to try to get the running game going. I think that Deontay Johnson didn't practice. I think that Minka is playing, but Minka is beat up. But
Najee Harris is beat up.
Najee didn't practice either.
Might not be a bad thing.
But the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win tonight against the New England
What's your
Patriots.
take on dejected Mike Tomlin on the sideline last week? No emotion, which is rare from him. As a guy that I've stood face to face with and interviewed, there's always emotion. Last week it just seemed weird.
I don't know what the trouble is in Pittsburgh. I'm telling you. And there's been some people, I think, the players have started talking about just not being prepared and everything. I like Mike Tomlin.
Trouble in Pittsburgh. They're 7-5. Do you know what I would do?
This guy.
Do you know what I would do as a Commanders fan to have trouble being 7-5?
I like Mike Tomlin. I like his coaching persona. I like his sayings.
I'm not a Steelers fan, but I have a lot of friends that I made over the years that still cover the Steelers, and I read their work out of respect, and I enjoy just reading their work. And it just seems like that locker room is a little sketchy. They're winning games still, but some of the stuff that's been said out of that locker room just doesn't seem like it's Steelers.
All right, and I know I'm getting all attacked by everybody else from the Steelers. But let me say something: the Steelers are going to come together.
They usually
He's going
do.
to get that. He's going to get that locker room going. He has never had a losing season.
Nope, and I don't think it's going to change this
And
year.
I'm hoping. Hey, we embrace it.
Yeah.
The Steeler Nation coming in. My buddy Jason Kamlowski, if you're watching, I know you call yourself a Steeler fan, but he picks against them guys. Don't let him lie to you. This guy right here, he doesn't. I'm going with the Steelers tonight.
You know, if the
Who you got?
Steelers, if they lose this game,
Stats, thank you for all
then
that.
it's, then really I will say, okay.
Is he on the hot seat if they lose this one?
I mean,
don't
not the
I
hot
don't
seat.
either.
Just his relationship with ownership and everything like that.
They
I
never
think that
fired.
ownership can look and see what the team is right now, and not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll pin that on.
He's taking
Yeah.
scraps and making.
And he's done that. Some of his best coaching years is when he's had nothing and going, 9-7.
Yeah. Well, look, last year they were 5-8. If there was any season he was going to have a losing record, it was last season.
Would you
And he's
take
somehow-
Mike Tomlin?
Oh my God! Would I take Mike Tomlin? I would take Mike Tomlin any day of
Stats,
the week.
who's your team?
Oh.
The Panthers. I would take Mike Tomlin in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
look, Mike Tomlin is a good coach.
I would
and
put
don't
Mike
think the
Tomlin
Steelers
as,
should be
as
wrong.
owner over David Tepper right now in Carolina.
I think what the Steelers should do is give him a better team, because you can take a 5-star chef, but if you give him bad ingredients, Bill Parcells, like, you give him bad ingredients, he's not.
All right, so let's talk about the other coach that in this game tonight.
He's definitely on the hot seat.
He is the
He's not on the
relationship
hot seat,
there.
he's done.
The relationship there is starting to boil over.
Yeah.
You've seen over the last couple of years which coaches are the coach who can take anything and turn it into something good. The Andy Reid's, granted he has Mahomes, but he did a lot of coaching up to get Mahomes to where he's at.
Yeah.
True.
You have the Andy Reids, and you have Bill Belichick, who has kind of faded off without Tom Brady.
Well, okay, now
You
hold
have
on.
Mike
Whoa.
Tomlin, who's taken teams that aren't as good and at least taking them to a winning record.
Here's what I'll say about Bill Belichick: quarterback matters in this league. Okay?
He's a schemer. He's
Yeah,
great
quarterback
schemer,
matters. It's one thing, okay, if he, let's say, got a guy like a Derek Carr, a middle of the pack, he should be winning. But he's had Mac Jones, and again, now also some of it is on Bill Belichick for the development.
Is
of Mac
Zappy starting
Jones.
tonight?
Yeah, some of it is on that development, because again, he's got to find the right offensive coordinator to get in.
Brady won those games for him.
Well,
You can,
Brady
you can put
won,
any,
but
you can put any coach in there. Look what Brady did with the Buccaneers.
okay, now
Who have been
that
trash
Buccaneers
without
team
him.
that Buccaneers team won 7 games when their quarterback had 30 interceptions.
Film don't lie.
Film don't lie.
Film don't lie.
But also,
Film don't lie.
film don't lie. Bill Belichick, when he was a defensive coordinator for the Giants, still won 2 Super Bowls and orchestrated those defenses that won those Super Bowls.
He had Lawrence Taylor.
Okay, so Bill Belichick has now coached the 2 best.
I can
players
also
in NFL
remember
history
how long
by
was he
that
the
much.
Jets coach? A day?
A day.
Yeah,
Well,
not long
that's
at
just
all.
good foresight. He realized
The
that's
Browns?
the job you
Yeah,
don't
he
want to
was
go.
with the Browns.
Okay, the Browns had winning seasons with him when they were a.
All right, would you take Belichick on your team?
As a coach, not GM. That's
Would
the
you-
fall.
would
That's
you-
the fall of Bill Belichick.
Stats?
They've given him GM. I take him as a coach and he did the
Would
week,
you
but
take
not as a
Belichick?
GM.
I would.
Yeah.
I would.
But not as a GM.
He's great in terms of scheme.
Yeah.
When he gets the players to fit
Discipline
his
and
scheme, any guy who can take those little stubby, quick-witted wide receivers and turn them into Hall of Famers like that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Look,
he can
Bill
scheme you
Belichick.
over. He can scheme you
He
over.
can scheme defense, and again, remember Brady. I mean, listen, maybe NFL proves every week. I don't know football, but I don't think Brady was the one that held the greatest show on turf to 3 points for 3 quarters, and then 17 points in total. I don't think when they played the Rams again and won their 6th Super Bowl, I don't think Brady held that Rams offense. To
But
3
you don't win
points.
those games without him.
And I don't think Tom Brady intercepted Russell Wilson at the goal line. Now, again, you need a quarterback to win. Brady was a guy. He was the ultimate. I mean, he was probably the greatest game-managing quarterback of all time. He didn't turn the ball over, and he made the throws when he needed to. And he was just disciplined. He was smart. He made the right plays. He always did. Greatest quarterback of all time, right? He did exactly what you needed to do at the position. But Bill Belichick is the greatest defensive mind of all time, and they were the perfect storm. So when people say it was all Brady, I absolutely lose it because it wasn't all Brady. And Bill Belichick still had a winning season after Brady. It's just, again, the conference got tougher and the division got tougher. The other thing was he played in a cakewalk division for most of that time. And then when he went to Tampa Bay, remember that team won 7 games with a quarterback who threw 30 interceptions the year before. He had Bruce Arians, who was a great coach. Okay, and also they had a top 5 defense that season, and he had Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all very solid names, and he also had Leonard Fournette. We're not going to mention Shady McCoy, but I mean, so he had and he also had one of the best offensive lines in football. So, to say I take Belichick on my team in a heartbeat as long as he's not making personnel decisions in terms of being a GM, I'm picking the Steelers.
I'm picking the Steelers too, but time out. Did you say Bill Belichick was the greatest defensive mind? Have you ever heard of a guy named Buddy Ryan for the 1985 Bears that institutes the 46 team, or even Dick LeBeau with the Pittsburgh
Bill
Steelers?
Belichick is one of
He
the-
learned everything from Bill Parcells. Granted,
Yeah.
great coach. Can't take it away from him. But I would not put him at. That would be my one argument with you. I wouldn't put him above Buddy Ryan.
I think you got at least
Stats
put him
you
in the
got.
conversation.
I would have to go Ryan.
Okay.
I think Bill Belichick is there. His
All right.
defenses in those Super Bowls were
Uh,
integral.
Before we move on, I'd put Todd Bowles over Bill Belichick in terms of defensive coordinator.
Huh?
Whoa, that's
Next
a
year.
take. But Jacksonville, Cleveland, what would have been, what should be a
I think-
crazy quarterback matchup is potentially the elite Joe Flacco versus.
Flacco's starting.
I don't know.
I think
He
the
might.
Browns defense is a little bit better than the Jaguars defense. I think Jaguars having to travel up there. We might have some lake effect snow that comes in and plays. I'm going with the Browns in this one, honestly. If Trevor Lawrence would play, I wouldn't, but I'm going with the Browns.
Well, now
in
the
this
thing of it is, Trevor Lawrence, we don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to play, and if he does, I don't think he's going to be.
I
the
wouldn't.
same. I mean, he shouldn't play. And I'll go with Cleveland too.
All right.
Even if he is playing, because like I said, I don't think he'd be the same quarterback that he typically is. So now we got 2 more games,
one. Okay.
major games.
All right.
The first game though is real. I mean, it's a big game.
We going
But
to Dallas?
We're going to Kansas City first.
Oh, okay.
It's a big game, but kind of doesn't have the same luster it does because Buffalo had to fire their offensive coordinator. They're looking a little shaky, and then Kansas City is just,
So
really
Kansas City,
shaky.
Buffalo.
Yeah, Kansas City. Buffalo.
What time's that
That's
game?
4:25. That's the game of the week.
Is it at
CBS?
It's at.
It's at Arrowhead.
Look, I'm telling you what. I watched that Buffalo and Eagles game, and I was impressed by Buffalo and what they were able to do. I watched that Kansas City game, and I was starting to think, what's going on here? I think that the lack of receivers. I think that Tyreek Hill, and I kind of go back to that, but how one person can make it, but still, I think that that's playing a big effect on Kansas City. I would not be surprised, and this is where I'm going out on a limb, if Buffalo were to win this game. Because everything on paper says they should, and this is the one that I would think that they would possibly win. So if I'm going out on a limb here, I'm just got a feeling, I think Buffalo can pick this wrong.
Look, you're not going out on a limb because I think you have the agreeable take.
You agree with me?
I'm agreeing
Wow,
with you. Look,
okay.
Kansas City, that Buffalo defense is a lot.
Stats, we picked everything the same.
Well, this last game we might not, but yeah. Buffalo, I think, is the better team right now.
Yeah.
And they're coming off their
I don't want to say they're a better team.
Well, think of it.
I just think they can win this Sunday.
No, they're coming off the bye. And that Chiefs defense
Yeah.
is good, but that offensive line is shaky. The receiving core is not very strong.
Yeah.
Buffalo has had a little bit of bad luck, some undisciplined things, bad play calling. And, that's kind of why they find themselves where they are. Josh Allen has had a down year. But I'm going to take Buffalo. I don't know if they lose another game in the regular season.
Teams are so close, you could say you could maybe flip a coin.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, this
Sorry
is.
for that joke, Josh Allen, if you're listening. I know he's probably still talking about
Yeah,
that.
no, he's what is he 0-5 in his career in overtime? I'm taking the Bills.
And honestly, that Bills team should have beat
The Eagles.
The Eagles.
They should have.
I honestly think
But
they should.
almost.
Speaking of the Eagles,
Well, speaking of the Eagles, we're going to Arlington, Texas, for Sunday Night Football. Philadelphia Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys.
Eagles won the first matchup. It was a close one. Stats, I don't know what that. I think it was less than 7. And Dallas really played well there. I don't think the Eagles can beat them twice.
I don't think.
And I know the Eagles really took
beating.
it was something else last week to see what San Francisco was able to do with the Eagles team, and I think Dallas is going to exploit that. This is where the Eagles run. This is tough for them the next several games. I don't think they come out of Dallas with the win. I'm going with the Cowboys. I am.
I'm going with the Cowboys too. Listen, one other stat, okay, that I think is very interesting. Cowboys right now, I believe it's a 14-game winning streak at home. They don't lose at home.
And night, that's a night game. That's Sunday night game, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. I think Dak's playing at an MVP level right now. Put him in the conversation. Jalen Hurts has been shaky. Philly's defense is terrible. That secondary is horrible.
And I think it can be exploited.
I think
by CD Lamb.
For one, I'm going to sit. Now again, I'm a Commanders fan. I don't like either of these teams.
It's hard for you to pick the Cowboys like it is hard for me to pick the Ravens.
But gotta give my flowers to Mike McCarthy. We all thought it was Kellen Moore. He left, and the Chargers have gotten worse on offense. And Mike McCarthy has taken over play calling, and he's put Dak in the MVP conversation now, in my opinion.
So we went across the gauntlet the same.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, like I said, so that's our show. That's our show.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure. Also,
you got a test to study for.
Yeah, I got a test to studies for, and also shout out.
All right, shout outs
to North Marion.
Yes.
Last week, 1 point loss.
Hey, it was
gutsy.
I watched the game.
I watched the game too.
The catch.
Great game.
Phenomenal.
Great game.
It's up for National High School Play of the Week right now.
Yeah, that was an excellent game.
And you go for 2.
You go for 2 every single time.
You go for 2.
Theron Hayes, if you're watching, we love the call here on the hills of West
And
Virginia.
we are going to be rooting for you next year.
Yes.
Just as long as it's not, if you move up against
unless you play
Musselman.
Musselman.
Musselman out. We will not root against.
Yeah.
We will not root for you in that.
I'd love to have them in Bunker Hill though.
Yeah, no, that would
Love
be
to have them come to Bunker Hill.
that would be
For
an
a
awesome
game. Well, but hey, let's go down here right now. Talk to Steve Campbell. See if we can get that thing scheduled. Set that up.
So yeah, so like I said, that's the show.
Okay.
Shout out we're gonna do. That's the show, and you know, if you watched, thank you. Fastest growing podcast in America.
Hundreds of thousands.
Potentially millions.
I don't know how many will. Please don't unsubscribe just
No,
because
don't do
of
that.
his rant.
Don't do that, please.
Okay, please do
I
not
couldn't live with myself
unsubscribe.
if that happened.
Okay,
So-
I need something for retirement.
I'm Stephen Askin.
I'm
This
Eric
is-
Brown. Back to you at the studios.